They assigned me to the middle of nowhere. A relic. A ghost of a machine in the Arizona high desert. A place so quiet, you could hear your own blood pump. They called it a reactivation project. They assigned me to the middle of nowhere. A relic. A ghost of a machine in the Arizona high desert. A place so quiet you could hear your own blood pump. They called it a reactivation project. A chance to listen to the stars without the noise of the world getting in the way. For me, Dr. Amelia Vance, disillusioned astronomer, it felt more like an exile. My career had flatlined, my passion for the cosmos had faded into a dull ache of what-ifs. This felt like the end of the line. The dish was magnificent. A giant ear tilted toward the heavens, a monument to a forgotten era of ambition. But from the first moment I powered it up, something was wrong. There was no celestial symphony, no whispers from distant galaxies. Just a low, persistent hum. A vibration that seemed to come not from the sky, but from the ground beneath my feet. The static on the monitors wasn't random. It crackled with a strange, almost deliberate rhythm. The silence out here is a physical thing. It presses in on you, fills your lungs. But this new hum, it was an intrusion. It burrowed into my skull. A constant, low-frequency thrum, that made the fillings in my teeth ache. I spent days recalibrating, running diagnostics, convinced it was a technical glitch. A malfunction in a machine that was older than I was. I told myself that the desert plays tricks on you. The isolation, the endless horizon, it messes with your head. Then, the patterns started. I first noticed them at dawn. I was on the gantry, checking a feeder horn, when I saw it. Etched into the red dust around the base of the telescope was a perfect, intricate spiral. It hadn't been there the day before. The wind couldn't have made it. There were no tracks, human or animal. It was just there, as if the desert floor itself had sketched it. Over the next week, more appeared. Complex geometries, fractal shapes that seemed to grow overnight. They spiraled out from the dish, a silent, beautiful, terrifying message. I started leaving a camera on a tripod, set to time-lapse. Watching the playback was horrifying. The sand would shift and swirl on its own, coalescing into these impossible designs under the cold light of the moon. And all the while, that hum from the dish grew subtly louder, the pitch shifting in unsettling ways. That's when I realized my mistake. I was listening in the wrong direction. The dish wasn't a receiver. It was a transmitter. An inverted antenna, broadcasting downward, deep into the earth. It was resonating with something ancient. The visions came next. They weren't dreams. I'd be looking at a star chart, and suddenly the screen would dissolve into a swirling vortex of sand and blinding light. I'd see jagged canyons where there were none, feel a crushing weight, a sense of immense age and patience, a presence. It felt like a consciousness, but not a human one. It was vast, geological, and it was trapped. The old myths from this region, the ones the local Native American tribes told. They spoke of beings petrified beneath the earth, sleeping gods of stone and silence. I'd dismissed them as folklore. Now, I wasn't so sure. This entity, this ancient intelligence, it was using the dish. It was learning. It was reaching out. And it was reaching into me. It found the hollow places inside me, my loneliness, my professional failures, the grief for my father that I'd buried for years. It whispered in the static, showing me visions of cosmic acclaim, of breakthroughs that would vindicate my entire life. It promised me the universe. All I had to do was keep listening. Keep broadcasting. The hum became a voice without words. The patterns in the sand became a language I was starting to understand. I found myself walking out to them, tracing their lines with my fingers, feeling the energy thrumming just beneath the surface. The dish was no longer just a machine. It was a conduit. A bridge between my world and a far older, far more terrifying one. A pale, ethereal violet light began to bleed from the edges of the dish at night, bathing the desert in a spectral glow. The air crackled. I was losing myself. The line between its influence and my own thoughts was blurring. One evening, I was reviewing my father's old research notes, a habit I'd kept since he passed. He was an astronomer too, obsessed with solar phenomena. His last entry was cryptic, almost delirious. It was about solar flares, and how a massive electromagnetic pulse could theoretically reset a localized field. It was just a theory, scribbled on a napkin, but it sparked something, an idea, a desperate, insane plan. I knew I had to shut it down, not just power it off, but sever the connection completely. But the entity knew what I was thinking. The moment I made the decision, the observatory turned against me. Doors slammed shut. Lights flickered and died. The hum escalated into a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the building. The psychological assault intensified. It showed me my father, his face filled with disappointment. It showed me an empty future, alone in this desert, forgotten. It screamed at me in the language of static and fear. I had to fight my way to the central control room. Every shadow seemed to move. Every gust of wind sounded like a mournful cry. The desert outside was no longer empty. It felt watched. I could feel the immense, open terror of the landscape pressing in. A vast prison with no walls. When I finally broke into the control room, the sight outside the main window stole my breath. Above the giant dish, the night sky was gone. In its place was a swirling vortex of sand and violet light. It was a maelstrom, a hurricane of dust and energy, pulling the very desert floor up into the sky. The entity was manifesting, using the dish as its anchor to our world. It was trying to pull me in, to make me part of its ancient consciousness. Its pull was immense, a physical and mental force that buckled my knees. The promises became threats. My loneliness became its weapon. But through the roaring chaos, I clung to my father's notes. A solar flare. A massive EMP. I could mimic it. My hands flew across the control panel, sweat stinging my eyes. The entity fought me, throwing sparks from the consoles, shaking the room violently. But I knew this machine. I knew its limits, its quirks, its breaking points. I began to manually override the power grid, shunting all available energy, bypassing every safety protocol. The system screamed in protest, alarms blaring in a dissonant chorus with the entity's roar. I was creating a deliberate, catastrophic overload. I slammed the final breaker into place. For a heartbeat, there was silence. A perfect, terrifying silence. Then, a blinding flash of white light erupted from the dish, and a wave of pure energy slammed into me, throwing me back against the far wall. The world went white, and the sound was a physical blow, a crack of thunder that seemed to split the sky. When my vision cleared, the vortex was gone. The roaring had stopped. Outside, the great dish was dark, sparking and groaning, a broken sentinel against the returning stars. The silence of the desert had returned. But it felt different now. Cleansed. I stumbled out of the wrecked control room, away from the dead machine. I had done it. I had quieted an ancient horror. The desert was still again. But as I looked out at the vast, dark expanse, I knew the desert always holds its secrets. And some things are not meant to be woken up. Thanks for watching.